All right, what up, y'all? It's your girl, PhilaDehlia, back during quarantine. Yes, I promised another special video, and here it is. I have a super amazing special guest that I know you guys are gonna love. His name is Darryl Stinson. Now, before I get you into him, I want to give you a quick background on why I brought him here. So, last week, I discussed a little of Nick Foles' untold story or underemphasized story around his biohacking, but also how he used faith and spirituality to lead him to the Eagles' first ever most historic Super Bowl. So that's the untold story of a Super Bowl MVP. But the more common untold story is those top tier Super Bowl caliber athletes that for some reason or another, they didn't get that chance to play in the NFL. So we have Darryl Stinson here, former defensive end at Central Michigan University. Is that right?
Fire up chips, baby.
So yeah, like tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here and your whole life of sports and beyond sports.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. I'm here for you, for everybody tuning in, for everybody watching this. I'm here to add value to your life. I'm here to encourage you. I'm here to give you hope in any dark situation. I'm here to pull you forward into your purpose and your destiny. I am Darryl Stinson. I am a speaker, a pastor, and I'm actually a suicide survivor. I played Division I sports at Central Michigan University, as you mentioned, and played with some really talented athletes. I used to always brag about playing with Antonio Brown. Like it or love it, I played with him. That's my guy. I was recruited by Butch Jones, who's at Alabama now. I played with #1 draft pick Eric Fisher. Played with a lot of NFL players, a lot of guys out of Florida, actually. And for me, sports was my way that I was going to be rich, successful, famous, everything, the whole 9 yards. But my freshman year, I actually got injured, back surgery. Boom. Supposed to be done. Game over. Like all this hope promises 275-pound defensive end that runs a 4.7, like laser time, gone. Like, and so what happened was instead of just focusing on my education and using my full ride scholarship to build a career outside of sports, since sports was who I was and not what I did, I signed a liability waiver to be able to put myself back on the field. And I did so at a cost to my health.
Wow. So what does that mean for those that might not fully understand? Like you signed a liability waiver. Like
that meant that if I died, and I'm like not trying to be dramatic, seriously, that meant if I died on the field, because it's a high probability if you have a major spinal surgery and you're playing Division I football, one of the most brutal games on this planet, that you could die out there. One hit in the wrong place, it's over. That the university wouldn't be liable for my death.
It's crazy.
And so that's how bad I wanted it, to put myself in harm's way. And I'm not the only one that's done some crazy stuff like that. So I put my body through 2 years of drug addiction. I was manipulating the healthcare system, getting multiple epidural shots in my back. I was going to chiropractic 7 days a week, physical therapy 7 days a week, twice a day. I was doing nerve killings. I was taking steroid pain pills in order to numb the pain. And I did this for 2 years. And because I was athletic, I managed to still earn a starting position, make some plays, but you could see that I was in terrible health. You could see that I started to develop this permanent hunch. But hey, I was better than the second man up, so why not just put me in the game? And finally, going into my senior year, the coaches saw I was doing something wrong because I was taking so many opioids that every time I made contact on the field, my nose would bleed. And the coach was like, "We don't know what this guy's doing, but hey, man, we got to let you go." And that's when I was forced to face depression. That's when I couldn't run from the fact that I didn't build any career outside of sports. That's when I had to face my own insecurity that, look, I didn't think I had any value outside of my athletic talent and ability.
Yeah, so this touches on last week. Nick Foles shared his kind of priority structure. Okay. And so he mentioned like what has allowed him to have peace and to go through the ups and downs of football and sports life was having the priorities straight, where it was instead of he had faith, family, then football. But most players especially at that point where you're signing a life
Football, baby.
waiver. You
Football,
had what?
football, football.
You had football number one above all else during
That's
that
it.
time.
That's it. Football, football, football. Nothing else. There was no plan B. There was no plan C. There was no plan D. Now, listen, it wasn't that I didn't think that I could be successful at something else. I had jobs before. I knew I had charisma. Like, I knew I could be successful at something else, but I didn't think that I would love anything more than I love being an athlete. And for me, that wasn't a life worth living. It's like living, like, it's, I always say this example. I say it's like being married to somebody, getting divorced and marrying a second spouse and then being like, hey, I really want to go marry my old spouse. Like, how would the current, like, and that's how a lot of athletes live in right now. Like, they have transitioned to a new career path. They've replaced their income, but yet they are still living their current life as if it's second best to their former life as an athlete.
Yeah.
And that's why I formed Second Chance Athletes, to help with that very thing, to help people fall in love with their current life more than their life as an athlete, to help them discover that new purpose, to help them build a legacy that will last beyond them, because that's what it's all about, impacting lives and leaving legacies.
Amazing. And like me, like, I don't know if you know this, but I was an athlete too. Like, I was a tennis player, retired tennis player. I wasn't on that same level in terms of like it was all tennis all the time.
Like Serena Williams, I see you.
I did get certified as a pro, you know.
Okay,
I was at my college. So like I did feel that type of transition when I became a mom, right? Where I had this situation. Now this is going to be less of the audience is going to be able to relate to this. They'll relate to your story more, but I'm going to give them a glimpse as to why I disappeared. And I had my little moment where I fell into like a postpartum depression thing. Is like growing up an athlete, you're like, your body is your temple. It is this refined machine. And like, you just think it's always going to be that way. And then I had emergency C-section with my first child. And that was like my first surgery ever. And then recovering from that was just really hard. And then I was just like, I can't do anything anymore. My body is unpredictable. And like, it took me time to cope with that. And I had all these resources, all this love, and my amazing family and children. But I can't imagine not having that support system and doing it on your own.
Wow. Now listen, I had a support system. I had a family that came to every single game. Even when it was far away, they found a way to make it. But I was an athlete. I was the leader. I was the hero. This is why I tell people, like, we've got to get out of this, like, and I know a lot of your audience probably doesn't struggle with this, but I know a lot of people that roll in these athletic circles and they're just starstruck by everybody. They treat athletes like they're like just superstars instead of human beings.
Yeah.
And I'm all for like autographs and like and like honoring people's success that they built. Like, I get it. Like, I'm not trying to be like, oh, don't ask for an autograph. I'm just saying, care about the individual more than the athlete.
Yeah.
Because it is possible to hide your internal brokenness behind external success. That was me. Why would I need help? Why would I need to lean on my support system? One thing I didn't tell you is that this transition out of sport led me to the darkest depression of my life. I started mixing pills and alcohol. I started because listen, I didn't know how to tell somebody that I was struggling and I was depressed. I didn't even know what to call it. I had never felt like this. I was on top of the world and I went to the bottom when they took sports away from me. So I just turned to drugs. I was already addicted to them. And now I just started doing more. And by the way, I was selling drugs because the university didn't pay for my medical expenses. My insurance that I had, my personal insurance, was HMO, which meant I had to go to certain doctors that were approved, and they weren't in a close radius to the university. So I started selling drugs throughout the state of Michigan to be able to cover my medical expenses. So I'm in knee deep. I'm going to like waking up every morning, drug transactions, trying to go to work, drug transactions, trying to still work out and rehab myself, and then drug transactions because I was just going to, make it through a back door and be a hero success story. But all of that stuff led me into a depression because I could not change the reality.
Yeah.
I could not accept what was. I was still trying to go back to what was. So it was crazy. And, I ended up in the psychiatric unit, and that was just the most traumatic experience in my life. To be a elite athlete and end up in a psychiatric unit, because I didn't know who I was outside of sports.
Wow. So how do you
Crazy.
find a path out from that point? Like,
You
how do you get from there to where you are now? Like
yeah,
smiling, brilliant, just
I
so
know,
full of
right?
joy. Like, there's
So do you
people.
want the
Yeah.
question that you should ask is, do you want the cold, the medium, or the hot? Like that's what I that's what I need to know right now. Like how transparent do you want me to be?
Hey, I'm all about keeping it real. So
Okay.
like I love
Yes.
the truth. My whole mission right now,
Uh-huh.
coming the newly evolved PhilaDehlia, is like I'm here to speak my truth
Okay.
and to be as honest and transparent as possible. And for those that are willing to listen, like, hey, let's hang out, have a conversation. For those that it's a little bit too much, then you
Yeah.
don't have to pay attention. This
Just
is our channel.
share with somebody else that needs it. If you don't need it, share it with somebody else who does. Okay, so I'm laying on a psychiatric bed in Detroit, Michigan. I'm a former shell of myself. I went from 275 pounds to 219 pounds because of all the suicide attempts that I had. And the doctors are asking me questions. Why did I want to kill myself? My parents are in the room. My sister's in the room. And they never had seen me depressed before. They had never seen me like this before. And every time they asked me, well, tell us, why are you depressed? What's going on in your life? I would just yell at them, leave me alone. I just want to die. They left. Now here's where he said, speak my truth. This is
Mhm.
the real story. I've
All
got
right.
witnesses. I wish if I would have known we would have went here, I would have brought you my little pamphlet from when I was in the psychiatric unit. This is a real thing. So um, while I had been crying so long that my eyes were swollen, basically shut, all I could do was open them up just a little slit to see out the bottom of them. And I saw this lady, I call her the woman with green pants, because that's all I could see. She comes in and she says, I don't know who you are. I'm not even supposed to be back here in this part of the hospital. But when I saw you, I feel like God told me to come back here and tell you that you need to say yes to him.
Wow.
Now, listen, I was agnostic. I didn't believe in Christianity, Buddha. I didn't believe in any type of religion. I thought that like all religions were meant to control people. So I wasn't trying to hear this. This lady was trying to talk to me about Jesus and God. And I'm like, leave me alone. I just want to die. My mother said that she prayed for me for about 10, 15 minutes. It felt like 2 seconds because I just kept screaming, leave me alone. I just want to die this whole time. She left. She said she was going to come back. Moments later, my grandmother came in the room, who was one of those praying grandmas. And if you ever had one of them praying grandmas,
Oh
the
yeah.
one that made you go to church when you were younger, that pulled you by the ear, like that made Sunday dinner, that was Grandma Greta. That was my grandma. And she had driven from Jackson, Michigan to Detroit, Michigan for it's about an hour and a half away. She burst through the doors and she said, honey, I've been praying for you all the way here. God told me that you know exactly what to do. You need to say yes to him. And I'm like, oh my God, the same command, the same request a second time from two different people who never talked to each other. But my heart was still hard. Like saying yes to God wasn't going to heal my back, wasn't going to give me my career, wasn't going to bring my girlfriend who I was dating for 4.5 years and left me, wasn't going to bring her back into my life. So what, that's not my God, that's her God. So I said, Grandma, that's you. Leave me alone. I just want to die. And the best way I know to describe this story is to say that all I can tell you is that I heard this whisper, which I know now to be the voice of God, whisper to me and say, son, will you just say yes to me? And it was something about hearing our Heavenly Father's voice that gave me the strength to mutter out a yes, Lord. In the moment that I said it, I promise you, the depression that I was under immediately left the room. My eyes got healed. I could open them again. I had seen light for the first time in 24 hours. It felt so good. I didn't know what else to do. I just kept screaming, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord. So the psychiatric doctor runs in the room and he goes, what's going on? Because he hears me yelling. If you're yelling in the psychiatric unit, you're about to get shot with drugs. So he comes in, what's wrong? And I'm like, man, I was running from God and I just put my faith in Christ. He said, send him upstairs.
Is that good or bad?
That's bad. That means you're going in the holding cell. And so that's a whole nother story about my experience here. But that is how I made that shift. That was the initial spark. That was the initial spark.
Wow.
Now, Now, for me, because I was agnostic, I still had a lot of questions. So this wasn't like just on fire for Jesus and believe everything a pastor says. I went to church that next Sunday, and I went to, after church, like when all pastors want this guy in his church. So after church, I go up to my pastor and I say, "Hey, where does the Bible come from?" He goes, "Hold on, let me get back to you." And so the next week he gave me some articles and stuff I had so many questions, so many doubts, and I had to work through I had to unlearn a lot of stuff that I thought was true.
Mm.
But can I tell you something? Over the course of 3 to 5 years, not only did I find a purpose, but can I tell you, God has worked through my life to do some crazy stuff, to impact thousands of lives. Let me share this one story, and I'll make it quick. But I used to be really insecure about my speaking ability. Hated how my voice sound. I was, I'll go one-on-one all day with you. I'll wrestle you to the ground, slam you. But I would not like to speak. I was one of those guys when you did icebreakers and they were like, "Hey, say your name and your favorite animal," or whatever. I would be like mumbling so it could hurry up and skip past my turn. That's how terrible it was. And I have footage to prove it. People don't believe me. They're like, "Why are you so dynamic now?" I'm like, "No, I was terrible. I have the footage of the first time I spoke. It was terrible." So ask All-American athlete Brian Pruitt from Prowler that he'll tell you he brought me in to speak and I did terrible. So I remember one of the ways that I saw God start to work through my life was I started to share my story of surviving suicide and just that whole dark suicidal spiral. And I was speaking at this conference. And as I was speaking at this conference, I just locked eyes with this girl. She looked about 13, 14 years old. And she stood up and accepted Christ that day. She came up to me after, and she was trembling. She was kind of nervous. And she said, "Hey, sir." And she said, I want to show you something. And she pulled up her wristband. And underneath her wristband was a bunch of cuts. She said, "I was living with my mom and my dad for 12, 13 years. And one day they just got tired of me. They dropped me off at an orphanage and they never came back. I've been self-harming myself because I didn't think that I was valuable or worth it. But hearing your story today, knowing that if somebody of your status can struggle with depression, gave me the freedom to share my story." I've heard that hundreds of times.
I bet. Wow.
And that's something that is a thrill that the game never gave me.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Wow. That's, I mean, that's just so inspiring. Like, regardless of, I know my subscribers, I don't know where they all fall on the spectrum theologically or agnostically, whatever it is. Like, I'm not here to preach or have people be converted, but like, this is such an amazing story in that, like, because I have a personal experience as well. Like, my struggle got me closer to God, but I grew up Christian. So I was already aware of it. And then having that breaking point is when he really made his presence known. Yeah. And so for you to not even have that upbringing and that God within your life, to have him just be there and knowing he's always there is just so profound. Yeah. And now, in retrospect, you see this path was perfectly paved for you to be here doing what you were truly sent here to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, because I did go to church when I was younger, but I had some really, really bad experiences. Like, one of my pastors that I looked up to sold me fake clothes, and I didn't find out as a middle school student, and I didn't find out until I went to school and got made fun of. That same pastor went to prison because he was manipulating people and gamming houses. You know what gamming houses is? It's telling the buyer one price, the seller another, and keeping the in between.
Oh, wow.
The person who was mentoring me in scripture sexually molested a young girl in church. So you want to talk, I was like, man, this stuff is fake. This stuff is just meant to control people. Like, if they're not living it and I'm trying to be like them, this thing is unreal. And so, that was even a harder struggle. So yeah, it doesn't matter where you're at in this faith spectrum, whether you believe in the universe or whether you're agnostic or you're of a different faith. Like, Like, again, that's not the purpose of this. I'm sharing it because it's my belief, my truth, but I can relate to being in all types of stuff, like agnostic, secret societies. Like I was a geek, a nerd for that type of stuff. I read all the articles and I was highly confused. and so, man, I can relate. And I've learned how to have conversation with people who don't agree, who don't believe what I believe. I still love them. I still welcome them. Hey, man, we need to develop the art of civil discourse again, where we can still have relationships and strong relationships and friendships with people who have different beliefs than we have.
Exactly.
Like, I am sick of hanging around the clique, the club, like let's get around some people and diversify our circle, because that's how we evolve as humans.
Yeah.
So no matter where you at, I want you to know we can connect. And whether it's through faith that you feel inspired, or it's just through the practical message that no matter how low life gets, no matter how hard life gets, you can still get back up. It's never too late to be great. You haven't made too many mistakes. You haven't gone too far. You're not too broken. You're not too weird. You're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you still have purpose in God, or there's still great destiny for you. You can still impact the world. That's what I believe.
Oh yeah, I believe it too.
If not the world, your world, and that's good enough.
Well, yeah. And like, there's this pattern that you kind of mentioned within yourself, and I personally experienced, where it's like there's this cascade of events that kind of breaks you for a moment, but you need to get to that completely vulnerable state to truly just like let go and let who you're meant to be like emerge, like a little butterfly or something. And I think something that I would tell myself was like, when I was feeling kind of down and depressed during my time, which wasn't even that big of a deal. Like, I know I'm just going through emotions and hormones and all this stuff that I knew I was aware of, but it's just temporary. Like, this is a moment in time that's preparing you for your future. And this is temporary, and it will all change if you just keep pushing forward in
Absolutely.
Towards love, like that's the ultimate thing. It's just
preach, girl.
Yeah. And the other thing is like, so you top tier athlete, but there's even players in the NFL that even though they get to that goal, there's still that emptiness that, you have like the whole Aaron Hernandez documentary that's out, and like that despite having the riches, the fame, everything at their fingertips, that there's still that something lacking. And like, what would you say to those types of athletes that were already there that are still struggling,
I would say number one, and this is for anybody watching this to know and dealing with athletes, that the longevity of your sport has nothing to do with the likelihood that you'll struggle with depression and the other challenges that we see that face former athletes. Has nothing to do with it. No, it's not about how long you've played. It's about how strong your athletic identity is. Athletic identity is the degree to which you identify with your sport or your role as an athlete. The stronger that is, the more likely you are to be at risk for depression, after sports depression, and all the other challenges that come with it. You've heard about the people that go bankrupt, divorce after sport. Athletic identity. So don't think that it's about if you've climbed and you're an Olympian, because I've seen Olympians who have transitioned well and had no problem because they have low athletic identity. They understand, this is my job, this is not my identity. They don't have parents who pressured them. They don't have a whole community who's depending upon them to be successful as an athlete for the family to thrive. They don't have that weight on pressure. They just understand this is a job. It's like working at Target or Kroger. That's how we need to view that's how we need to view sports. So I would say, number one, recognize your athletic identity. Start to develop a more holistic identity. Number one, don't attach your identity to anything you do. Attach it to who you are. Get core values that shape your identity. Be a person of integrity, a person of character, a person of kindness, a person that's generous, because that is something that no one can take away from you. Your sport can get taken away from you. Your job can get taken away from you. Your house, your money, all of it can be stripped away. But you'll still be standing. Your values will still be intact. So find something outside of sports to attach your identity to. The other thing I would say is, man, I have in our 5-step process that we train athletes on how to get over sports, discover their purpose, build their dreams. One of the things that we teach in the first phase is acceptance, how to deal with the end of career. And there's a bunch of tactics and strategies that we teach. But one of the things that I think that it's important for current athletes to know is that just like you wouldn't expect one of your friends to fulfill all of your needs, you can't expect one fan to fulfill all of your affirmation. Here's what I mean. We think that everybody who cheers for us is our true fans. And I know a lot of athletes who struggle with unforgiveness, who have trust issues, who like always are looking over their shoulder because they think that if somebody cheers for them, they're supposed to like them as a person. But there are different types of fans. So we teach people on the 4 different types of fans, okay? There are some people who are just in it for the business. And guess what? That is okay. They don't have time to really get to know you. So yeah, they might have asked you, hey, how's your friends? How's your family? Because you're an employee. And then when you're done, or you're no longer playing for their organization, they're not calling you. It doesn't mean they weren't genuine. They just in it for the business. I call that the business person fan. And on top of the business person fan, then you got your admirers, right? My wife told me to change this one because I called them the clueless. These are people who are just in awe of the fact that you're tall, strong, athletic looking. Like they can't see around that. And the only thing that I had to relate to is because I used to hate when people used to always come up to me and look at me like I was a giraffe. Like, like I am not that tall. I'm 6'5". And then I played against this guy who was 7'2", and I was like, wow. And I said, I get it. For them, I'm just like this is like them looking at a zoo animal. They can't help it. Like I was out of sports for 3 years, and this guy's like, man, I still remember when you did this and played blah 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 blah. And I'm like, man, I'm doing a marketing consulting company now. He's like, yeah, man, remember you hit that game when the shot against it. I'm like, this dude just can't help it. He's just a fan. Just take a picture with this guy so he can, be happy that he was around his childhood hero and be okay with that. Don't get frustrated because what I was doing was taking that stuff personal. Like all they care about is my athletic ability. No, all they see is your athletic ability. They don't know you. Don't expect them to. Mm-hmm. There's different types of fans. Process your fans differently. Don't expect the same thing from everybody because you'll set yourself up to be bitter after sports. I can keep going, man. I wrote the book on this.
No,
Don't get me fired up.
I'm sitting here trying to figure out which kind of fan am I. I'm probably an admirer. I don't know. Put Brian Dawkins in front of me, and I'll melt. So
I know Brian Dawkins.
You do?
Yeah, man. Yep,
God.
Yeah, he's a part of this organization called King. Chris Broussard, NBA analyst, Fox Sports analyst, is over it, and I'm just connected with them. They're great. They're great men.
He's he's on my bucket list. I have to meet him or talk to him at some point in my life. So I'm glad you let me know that because right. We got to make this happen now. And he would
be glad to do it, man.
Yeah,
he's a great dude.
He's got that faith tie-in and is just integrity. Like I love those athletes are the ones I'm drawn to. Right?
Oh, he's a beast, man.
Foles, the Darryl Stinson. And so speaking of players, I know you did play with Eric Fisher, right?
I did.
And he just won his first Super Bowl with
the
Chiefs.
Good stuff, my guy. Him and Frank Zombo was on our same squad too. Chiefs. Yep.
Super Bowl. So I mean, like that's the caliber of player we're talking to here, guys. Like he played with Eric Fisher, and like you guys, if you guys are playing on the team together, the quality of athleticism is pretty on par. So one thing interesting about the Chiefs, I don't know if you saw this, but they're them winning the Super Bowl. There was Bob Jones, the prophetic minister, who kind of had released 20 years ago a prediction, or he prophesied that the Chiefs would win the Super Bowl. So
I heard about that.
I'm gonna quote it right here, and I want your take on it because it's an interesting little tie-in.
All
And
right.
let me see, where is it? So yeah, on Sean Bowles kind of referenced it, and he said Bob Jones had heard from God that the Chiefs who would go to the Super Bowl, or he had heard from God that the Chiefs would go to the Super Bowl and win it. He shared that when they won it, it would be a sign of upcoming and end time revival. He explained that God is raising up his Chiefs to be leaders in many spheres of influence.
Oh.
I thought that was a really cool sign. And so like for me, like I'm not really like into like I didn't know about all this prophetic stuff until like recently, till I had my breaking point. I was like, wow, like there's so many coincidences that aren't coincidences anymore. And it's just amazing to see that like I'm looking through life through a different lens now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
things become a lot more clear that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I'm just kind of having an exciting moment in hearing your story and seeing how it ties to football, but also just to life and love and happiness. So
Yep.
I know right now during these times, pandemic, people are kind of in lockdown, like we're really seeing what really matters.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, there's kind of a reset happening. I'm feeling it. So
There is.
let's go ahead and let people know where they can kind of learn more about what you're doing, like the whole explanation of the fans and the athletes, that all of that, like how do they learn more and kind of grow kind of on that path that you've already set?
Absolutely. So if you're an athlete, former athlete, go to secondchanceathletes.com, download the Life After Sports guide. It's free. It's just a resource to tell you what's the 5 things that you need as a former athlete in your life. You can join the private Facebook community, Second Chance Athletes, network, connect with other athletes. I'll get in there and train on free content. Right now, I'm actually in the middle of doing a blitz where I am sharing the signature framework that I traditionally charge $14.99 for 6 weeks to facilitate for free. And so not only that, but I'm also bringing in experts in nutrition, brain science, transition, career resume development, job placement, business, to talk about what their specialty is. I can help you detach your identity. I can help you find your purpose. They can help you with the rest of the stuff. So let them talk about that. And so go to secondchanceathletes.com or just look up Second Chance Athletes and join the private Facebook community. And if you want to just connect with me personally, mental health, I rap. Just had a new song called Defy the Statistics come out. Go download it on iTunes. But just go to DarrylStinson.com. That's DarrylStinson.com. And let's connect.
I love it. And you have a book coming out, Who Am I After Sports? Is that right?
Yes,
July 1st?
That's right.
And
July 1st.
Y'all, homeboy can spit some rhymes. Like the interview I saw him on for the first time, he was just spitting them out. Like I make cheesy YouTube videos, like cheesy rap battles, but like you're legit. I'm enjoying it. So
did you hear my We All Need Hope song?
Oh yeah, I
yeah. So that one was like nursery rhyme. It's a little cheesier, you know. It wasn't as much like bars, you know. So yeah, I did it with my daughter. So
as a mother, I appreciate that though. I love the hook and her voice. It just makes it so much sweeter. So before we do close out here, one, I want to let the audience know that Darryl will be available for a Q&A to do a live stream with you guys. So if you guys are into that, definitely put some comments below this video so that we can answer any of the questions that you have. Like, yo, he's homeboys with our boy Brian Dawkins, like, you know, so like any questions you have about football, about, you know, overcoming just whatever mental struggles you have, like we want to be here for you, especially during this time, like quarantine. Everybody's at a different space, and those that are just kind of by themselves isolated, I want you guys to reach out. I want you to feel like you have a tribe that you can go to be supported through this, because you're not doing it alone. Just like Darryl said, like we're here to help, and God's placed us in front of you for a reason. So,
that's right.
But last thing is, if you have one thing that you could recommend for someone to do on a daily basis, what would that one thing be that like make sure you don't miss this one thing?
Oh gosh. Value life and the people you love. This past year, I lost my greatest mentor, Elder Mike White. And he was such an influential person. He was a state trooper. He was the chaplain of our football team at CMU. Eric Fisher knows him. Antonio Brown knows him. He's a great guy. He's actually one of the main reasons Antonio Brown is where he is or was because he just bailed him out of so much trouble so many times. And he passed away in the middle of a marriage counseling session, like in his mid-60s, too early. One of the things I was grateful for was the fact that when I moved from Michigan to Metro Atlanta, where I'm at now, I kept in touch. And there were so many people at his funeral bawling, not just because they missed him, but because they never returned his call. They took life for granted.
Yeah.
And being a person who survived suicide, I value the breeze, the green trees, the simplest things of life. Don't take life for granted. I think this coronavirus pandemic is teaching us that. Some of us took relationships for granted. Some of us took the game for granted. And now we see how short life, how fragile life is, and nobody's untouchable. Kobe, nobody's untouchable. Gigi, the others involved. I think we're just realizing that, man, like this is the time to value the people you love and enjoy every single day. Be present. That's what I would say.
Wow, that was powerful. And that is amazing. Like, thank you so much for just sharing this life experience and those nuggets of wisdom that I know are going to reach the right people that need to hear it right now. So I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I look forward to many more interactions with you. And again,
it's gonna be awesome. We friends now.
I know we homies. Good. I'm down. So, so you guys, again, leave your comments below and we'll get to them next week. And I hope you all are having a wonderful, amazing week. And just remember, just appreciate what God has given you right now, and it just gets better from there. So that's it. It's your girl Delia with PhilaDehliaEagles.com signing off with Darryl Stinson, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Peace.